Copy That. I'm Lauren O'Quinn here with casting director Matthew Sefick, and we are so excited to welcome our special guest, Mackenzie Astin. Mackenzie's prolific acting career started as a child actor. He spent years as a series regular on arguably the best show of the 80s, Facts of Life. You've seen him in Homeland, Grey's Anatomy, Shameless, How to Get Away with Murder, Scandal. And most recently, you can catch him as a recurring guest star on Showtime's The Loudest Voice. Mackenzie also grew up in the entertainment industry. He's the son of legendary Hollywood actors John Astin, Gomez on The Addams Family, and Patty Duke. His brother is a little-known actor, Sean Astin. So we're so excited to chat with you. Mackenzie, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you guys for having me. It's funny because I didn't want to do the flex, but that is Mom's Emmy right there. So she's represented as well.
That's so amazing. Was that the Emmy that she won for The Miracle Worker?
Wow, well done. Yeah. So this is So there's this one is they did a TV movie of The Miracle Worker in the Reflection. In 1979, I think, where she played Annie Sullivan, which is not the part she won the Oscar for, which was the 1962 production of The Miracle Worker, where she played Helen Keller. She's got a number of awards for playing different parts in The Miracle Worker. But yeah, that one is best supporting. No, best actress. Best actress, outstanding lead actress in a limited series or special.
That is so amazing. I love it.
Yeah,
well,
it's
why
good
don't you
stuff.
tell them your Patty Duke story.
Oh, can I? Oh.
I'd love it.
I got to be in a movie. It was a Christian film, and it happened to be your mom's last movie.
Oh, no kidding.
Called Power of the Air.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually signed on for the movie because the director called and told me that Patty Duke was going to be in it.
Oh my God.
And I didn't have any scenes with your mom, but I got to come meet her, and she was so lovely to me.
Oh, it's fantastic.
She called me Anna. That's actually what
Beautiful.
she said when I met her.
Yep.
And I just got to say hi, but I'm a huge fan of your mom's because when I was in high school, I got to do The Miracle Worker. I was
fantastic.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
And it was so great. I used that monologue actually to win. It is a large way that I went to college. I got acting scholarships by doing a monologue from The Miracle Worker. And so I had studied the original, Miracle Worker movie that your mom did as Helen Keller. My God, She was amazing.
Yeah.
And then obviously the television movie that she did as Annie Sullivan. I mean, she was an absolutely phenomenal talent. So I was just
unbelievable. And so deeply naturally gifted that it's hard to even conceive. And I will continue to say for eons that the performance that she gave in the movie The Miracle Worker, the film from '62, is one of the most amazing performances by anybody ever in anything ever. That movie
totally agree.
Itself is so very powerful and so well put together and so beautifully directed and stark and painful and mournful and awful, and then the clouds break and it's the miracle happens. But it's just I don't think anybody could have done that any better. And
it still holds up today because the performances were, Anne Bancroft and your mom, I just love
all
it.
The way through. I think it's actually it's a really good example of what can happen if actors are given the opportunity to rehearse, because they did 2 years on stage on Broadway with that very material. And so by the time they got to the point where they were making the film, that stuff was in their bones. That stuff was deep within them. And certainly it's a different experience, if you're on a film set with a film crew as opposed to in a room with, 200, 300, 500 people. But having the opportunity, I think for both of them, having the opportunity to have those performances so deeply ingrained in them before they put it on film, I think went a long way for making it as indelible as it is.
I totally agree. Yeah, I was just really fortunate. And so it's really cool. It's full circle to come. And honestly, The Miracle Worker, getting to be in that movie and then becoming such a huge fan of the originals is what made me really want to be an actor professionally.
That's fantastic. Another miracle.
Yes, another
miracle.
I
think. Right. That's good.
So thank you both for taking part in this. I appreciate it. I guess first and most importantly, Mac, I want to extend my condolences to the current state of the baseball season.
Great. It's so bizarre. Thank you. I appreciate that. The show will go on. I hope someday. It's so bizarre. So bizarre.
And a lot of people right now are curious as to what everybody else is doing to cope and kind of get through this right now. What are you up to?
Well, I've been watching a lot of old games on YouTube.
Oh, have you really? See,
Yeah,
I have not been able to go down that route. It's got to be live for me.
It's interesting because there, the MLB .TV. I think the archives will go back a year or two, but I haven't done that yet. I think it would still be too painful to watch, the current team play games that they played last year and know deep down that they're not playing right now. But there's something about looking at older games. Like I think I've watched some stuff from the '88 playoffs, the pennant and the World Series. I watched some stuff from '81. I watched some stuff from '85. It's like it's far enough in the past that it feels nostalgic. I think looking at the present day stuff would be too painful.
I'm taking it you're a big baseball fan.
Boy, oh boy. Right now I'm looking at a poster of Sandy Koufax. Right now I'm looking at a poster of Jackie Robinson. Right now I'm looking at bobbleheads of the present day team. So yeah, I do like baseball. In the laundry room there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think it's 8 hats. Yeah, I got a problem.
Are you doing anything that you feel like is making you a better actor or productive?
Well, I have the good fortune to be able to sit in on my dad's classes. My dad runs the theater program at Johns Hopkins University. He's been there about 20 years now. And so the classes moved to Zoom right at the beginning of March. And so he's teaching from his apartment, from his condominium, to the students who are, all around the country now. And I'm lucky that I get to tune in and not take part, but just sort of be there to help out if necessary. So I'm stealing from some of his teachings without having paid tuition. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but that's good because I get to hear some of the wisdom that he's picked up over his, 70 years of experience. And that's good. I've also helped out. There's an actor named Michael Gaston who's on the Twitter, and I think it's Michael_Gaston, who's been around a long time and has done a ton of work, and he's a great actor. His son, Gabe, was a student of my dad's a couple years ago. And so I got to meet him and know him a little bit. And he started doing something with this time that we all have in our houses, where he started out where he was reading a sonnet every day, or actually several every day, and then he tried to get his actor friends to read sonnets as well. So I got roped in. I got tagged in a challenge there, and ended up reading a sonnet, which was whatever. It was interesting. I chose one that actually kind of was oddly fitting for the experience that we're having now. And then that sort of progressed into another hashtag, not read a sonnet, but read us a short story, where Michael Gaston has been reading short stories left and right and getting his actor friends to do the same. And so I contributed a couple of not short stories, but old poems that were lively and silly and kind of fun. And so I think there's contributions that some actors are making from their own home to help fill this time in. And, they're not for everybody for sure, but some people have dug on them. And I think the working of that muscle is a good thing to do, especially, Shakespeare's a little bit different than the loudest voice, shall we say. So it's a different kind of exercise. Which I think is helpful. Probably the thing that will be most helpful is when we get back into auditioning for stuff, which hopefully won't be too far in the future, but it's tough to know at this point.
Yeah. Any TV shows that you're watching or have binge watched lately that you love?
That's a good question. This is a little embarrassing to say, but I'm not much of a TV guy, which is wild. And I mean, I'll watch baseball when it's on for, 4 hours, 3-4 hours a night. And that window has yet to be filled. I've watched some old games, but that window's yet to be has yet to be filled with other TV shows. I know my wife's watching a lot of stuff, which she enjoys. But it's funny. It's like it's interesting that I don't spend more time watching stuff that other people make. I think there's a deep-seated old thing in me that's like, well, if I didn't get the part, I'm not going to watch it, which I need to get over.
So you grew up surrounded by talented actors, and you started your career at a young age, like Lauren mentioned. Were there any pieces of advice that the actors in your family gave you that have stuck with you through the years?
Man, it's hard to narrow it down to one or two, but I remember really, really early advice from my mom, which was to just, think of what the character is supposed to be feeling. And if you think of it well enough, that will come through on your face. It sounds super simplistic, but I think, fundamentally that's what's actually going on. I remember a bit of advice from my old friend Timothy Busfield, where he says, listen to the music of it. He says each scene has a certain music to it, and you can hear it if you focus enough on it. And the advice that I remember from my dad as a kid was make sure you get an education.
Valid.
Yeah. An art director that I worked with years ago, who's no longer with us, used to say all the time, it's jazz, not math.
Oh man, that's beautifully put. It really, really is. Well, I mean, there are different. I think blocking can be math, but performances are jazz for sure.
Were there any pieces of advice that you didn't find particularly helpful or that didn't apply to you?
Oh, interesting. I mean, I'm sure that there are many bits of that. There are certain. I audited a couple of acting classes when I was in my 20s, and I found that they weren't a good fit for me. I honestly can't even remember the names of the teachers, but I found that it was difficult for me to, and this could be a function of my own stubbornness, but I thought it was difficult for someone. I thought it was tough for me to allow someone else to tell me how it is that I'm supposed to feel. I feel like I'm in charge of my emotions. So what the heck is that guy going to know about how I'm supposed to feel? And I think that I was in my own way in my 20s for a lot of different reasons. And as I've gotten older, I've come to recognize that it's not about somebody telling me how to do it. It's about somebody telling me how to access the stuff within me that will help guide me to expressing what it is that I do. But yeah, there was, plenty of advice that I didn't take, right after I turned 18, which was don't spend all the money you made on the facts of life. Well, yeah, I did.
Well, I think that's pretty much any 18-year-old that has access to money.
Oh man, I had a lot of fun. Well, I'll say that.
Then no regrets.
Right.
So knowing what you know now about auditioning, what would you tell a young Mac Astin who was just getting started?
Wow. Well, don't drink so much.
Well, younger than that.
Oh, okay. Don't smoke so much weed. No, not those things. Actually, that's all true. Well, it's the same advice that I still give myself. In this latter day, with the advent of the internet, I've had the good fortune to have the majority of my auditions over the past couple of years be self-tapes. Because I live in Baltimore, which is anomalous, and not in New York or Los Angeles, I have the opportunity to turn in self-tapes. And thank goodness for the internet, and thank goodness for casting directors welcoming the idea that they can look at tapes rather than having somebody come in. Because the most difficult thing for me as a young actor and still as an adult actor is the waiting room. I think fundamentally it's the same problem that anybody has, whether they're an actor or not. Is basic feelings of insecurity, basic feelings, what do they call it? The imposter complex, where you
imposter syndrome, yes.
Imposter syndrome, yeah, where you feel like you're not valid enough, you're not good enough, somebody's better at something than you are. And these are all things that, you know, cloud your ability to access the stuff that I was just talking about, you know, the reality of your feelings, of your ability to emote. And so what I found when I was a younger actor is, no matter how studied I was on the audition scenes, no matter how well together I thought I put the outfit for whatever the character was, no matter how early or on time I was to the audition, invariably the waiting room experience would get in my way. And it had nothing to do with the other people in the room. Well, sometimes there's somebody that can talk too much, but it was mostly to do with my incredible intrinsic ability to think that somebody else is better at it than I am. And I'm certain that that affects the majority of actors who have to go sit in a waiting room and try to keep those self-doubt thoughts away from them while they stay focused on the material and put themselves in a position to go into the room without bringing all their own shit in there. That's actually the advice that I would give to a younger me. Don't bring my own shit into the room, because that stuff reads so much more than I had given it credit for. Like, I remember, you know, I still have this instinct that I can, you know, put all that stuff behind me and just perform the scene and do a good job at that, and it'll be enough. But, you know, bringing one's own stuff into the room reads a lot more than I had given it credit for. And I don't think I would have been able to figure that out had I not been doing so many self-tapes now, because I can see my own bullshit when I'm correct, you know, when I'm looking back at the last take to see if it works.
Who reads with you when you do your self-tapes?
My wife, Jennifer. I really have a very, very, very fortunate set of circumstances here in Baltimore. Like I said, my dad runs the theater program at Johns Hopkins University. He's been there 20 years. They love him. The school is really grateful that he's there. The building that he works in is a gorgeous 217-year-old carriage house for the original property that became the campus. The second floor is a small black box stage that they renamed the John Astin Theater. So I get an audition, a self-tape, and you know, from the agents who are in New York and Los Angeles, and I say, hey, Dad, can I borrow the keys? And I get to go to the stage of the John Astin Theater and use the stage lights and set up the tripod. And my wife, who is herself actually a pretty good actress, but someone whom I trust implicitly and I feel safe with, which is also a large part of auditioning. I read with her, and you know, thankfully, I think because of the quality of the camera, which is, you know, it's not the most high tech thing. It's a Nikon, what is it, a 5300, I think, with an okay lens, and you know, the microphone, which is, you know, good quality. Like, you know, for the self tapes, obviously, you want to try to make it as good a quality as you can. But anyway, it's a very safe circumstance in which I audition for stuff. And I think that allows me, someone who's highly sensitive and vulnerable to the thing that gets actors all the time, like, will they like me? Will they like me? I have a circumstance where I don't have to worry about that because I'm already safe and protected. Now, what people who live in New York are able to do, and what people who live in Los Angeles are able to do, and what people who still, you know, for the most part have the audition waiting room experience, is to develop an exoskeleton that is impermeable so that they get the words, they get the scenes, in there. And then they put on an exoskeleton and go put themselves in the waiting room and are not bothered by anybody else's talking. They're not bothered by the fact that that guy's shoes are a lot better than the shoes that I wore, or that he looks more like the part in my mind's eye than I do. And they just go do it. And that's where I think New York, I think just because of the way it's built and because of the kind of attitude you have to survive there, makes people better actors. It makes them tougher on the outside. And as long as they can shed that exoskeleton once they walk through the door into the actual audition room and give whatever performance they've built up, that's great. Los Angeles, the exoskeleton takes the shape of whatever car you're driving. But if you can find a parking space and get to your audition early enough, fighting traffic, you still have to have an exoskeleton that protects you from your own self-doubt, which can be the most debilitating thing in the business, I believe.
Do you prefer self-tape to going and being in the room?
Right now I do. I mean, there are lots of different aspects of a self-tape that are valuable. Obviously, you get to choose the best take that you send in. When you're working with someone with whom you're familiar, that familiarity, I feel like, breeds an opportunity to do a better job. That is, this is the way that I'm built. I'm speaking from the position that I have. This could be vastly different for other people. Some people are just great in a room, no matter what. But for me, I found what was getting in my way before the present circumstances was, do they like me? Do they like me? Do they like me? Do they like me? Which would get in my way before I got in the room. So I do like doing self-tapes now because it is convenient, because I can send in what I think is the best take. But it has put me in a position that I think is, not as great for when I have to go into the room. The Loudest Voice audition was an interesting experience because they weren't taking self-tapes and I had to get up to New York to go into the room and audition. And I prepared like the Dickens, and ended up taking a bus up to New York, which is 2.5, 3 hours. And then the train to where the subway to where the audition was. So the experience, like anxiety builds. Anxiety is good at building. And when there's, my experience when I have an audition is like there's the anxiety of doing a good job. And it was particularly tough because instead of, when I was living in Los Angeles, instead of like a 40-minute drive to the audition and a 10-minute wait or a 20-minute wait in the waiting room to go in and have your 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever, that length of time where the anxiety is building up is a lot shorter than a 3-hour bus ride to New York City. But I was lucky for a couple of different reasons. I didn't have too long to wait when I got into the actual waiting room, and I got lucky because there was someone leaving the audition as I walked into the waiting room who recognized me from a TV show that I worked on called The Magicians, and happened to say, as I was going up the stairs and they were going down, "Oh, hey man, you're a really good actor." And so I was gifted from a total stranger this reminder that I'm capable, that I can do this. And honestly, I think that's the thing that gets in the way in the waiting room for a lot of people is they forget that they too are a really good actor. They'll see terrific actors sitting around them. I recognize that guy from such and such, from that show, Oh, that guy beat me out for that part. That guy's, he was great in this. But remembering that you too have the ability, at least for me in that circumstance, was the most valuable thing that could have happened. Also, I think I was a good fit for the part, which probably helped more than anything. I think I looked enough like the character that I played based on a real guy, and I was willing to work for cheap.
So this is kind of a two-part question, but what advice would you give to a young person that's just getting started in the business, as well as their parents?
Ooh, you mean a young person like someone under 18?
Yes.
Well, for a kid who's starting out, and occasionally I'll give this advice to the college students that are in my dad's theater program, who are also kids, but not as young as under 18, is to be prepared to be rejected and get okay with rejection. Because no matter what, if you choose to do this for a living, you will get rejected. You will get rejected far more times than you get accepted. And that is the nature of the beast. There are a lot of people trying to do this for a living. The process is set up such that a number of people go audition for just one part. And the majority of people that audition don't get that part. So try to develop that exoskeleton early. Try to understand that the rejection, even though it's very hard to, try to understand that the rejection is not based on you personally. It feels like it is. How could it not? I went in there and gave my performance. They didn't think my performance was the right one. How is that not a rejection of me? That's the nature of the beast. So build up that exoskeleton, get used to the idea of rejection, and don't let rejection get in the way of the next opportunity. My dad's advice about auditioning is to walk out of the audition looking forward to the next audition, whatever that is. Not for the same project, obviously. Just leave it there if you can. Try to feel good about what you do in the room, but leave it there if you can. The advice I would give to parents of kids who are trying to give this a shot is to be patient both with the kids and with themselves. I think it's very, very easy for parents to fall victim to the idea that their child's success is a reflection of them, and that can put a lot of undue pressure on the kids themselves, which is not fair. I was tremendously fortunate to grow up in a family where the kid's success was not going to be like the mom's success. You know what I mean? Like, she had done okay. So her feelings of self-worth were not at all related to whether or not I got the job. And I think much like Little League Baseball or, high school sports, a lot of times parents can put their hopes and dreams into their kids' experience. And then the child has not only their own hopes and dreams, but the weight of their parents' stuff. Now, it's easy for me to say this. I don't have any kids. I don't know what it's like to be a parent. But observationally, I feel like what I've found is sometimes that can be the case for the parents. Now, it's not easy to be a parent, and it's not easy to be a child actor in this business. So I think something that's important for both, advice-wise for both the parents and the kids, is to be able to forgive oneself for any kind of transgression. You know what I mean? The parents should be able to forgive themselves for putting too much pressure on the kids, and the kids should be able to forgive themselves for not getting the job or for not having a good time trying to get the job. I know there were experiences I had when I was a kid where I didn't want to go audition for something. Like, it didn't feel good to not get the job, but I would put myself through that experience. And sometimes I didn't get the job. Sometimes I got the job. But being able to forgive myself for not getting work was super, super valuable in terms of getting work in the future.
Do you believe, as I do, that actors have to learn auditioning if they want to be they have to learn to love auditioning if they want to be a professional actor? Because
absolutely.
Our job is to be a professional auditioner, right?
That's what we do.
Yeah.
I'm 46 years old now, and I have been auditioning for 39 of those years. And it took me a long time to get used to it. And even now, there's still parts of it that are uncomfortable for me. But I've gotten better at ignoring those parts that are uncomfortable and focusing on playing the scene. I mean, because that's what it really comes down to. Like, you have to be able to remember the music of the scene. You have to be able to put yourself in the position to do the best performance you can do once you get into the room, and not let all kinds of stuff be in your way. It's not easy. It's really tough. Some people are absolutely gifted at it. Some people will go in and just take over a room and get work because of it. And it's great. Some people are not like that. But as soon as you cross that threshold into the room where you're saying hello to the director and the producer and the casting director, you deserve the opportunity to give them the best that you can give. And I think it's hard to do that sometimes. I think it's hard to do that a lot of the times. But when you do walk into that room and leave all your bogus stuff behind and just play the scene and perform to your ability, it's a magical experience, even if you don't get the job. I've finally, in my middle age, gotten to the point where I can appreciate having had a good audition, even if I don't get the job.
Yes,
walking out of,
you can say, I got to act today, right? I got to act today. For 3 minutes, that role was mine.
Absolutely.
And I got to act today. But you got to learn to love that and not be focused on the product, but enjoy the process.
Right. That's absolutely, absolutely true. And it's very, very, very hard to do. I mean, we all want to get the job. We want to be loved. We want to be appreciated. We want to get hired. We want to pay the rent. And the stakes are high because of that. And it's hard to it's hard to keep those stakes away from whatever gifts you have intrinsically. And what you said is absolutely, absolutely true. It's what we do for a living is audition. When we're lucky enough to get work, that is icing on the cake. There are a subset of actors who work all the time, who are working actors, and they still spend time auditioning, but they've gotten lucky enough to put themselves to be in a position where they can focus solely on whatever it is that they're working on. The rest of us have to be able to compartmentalize and give ourselves over completely to the material that we have, even if it's a page and a half, and do what we can do, and then move on to the next one.
Yeah, and I think as actors, it seems like it's so hard because we have to live wide open in so many ways so that we can empathize with these people that we're bringing to life, so that we can allow our emotions to live so close to the surface that we can access them when we need to for these roles. And then conversely, we have to develop this thick skin, like you said, the exoskeleton, to say, I'm not going to let somebody else's rejection of me affect me.
Right.
And this isn't personal, even though it's so personal, because I'm bringing myself to this. And that's the whole battle that we're always facing internally. It's so great for actors to hear that someone who is a working actor like you battles the same self-doubt and the same challenges.
Big time. Big time. Yeah. Jenny, my wife, with whom I read most often, she'll tell you it's an experience. The audition thing it's an experience. Even in the safety of the stage that bears my father's name, it's an experience. There's a line from the Tom Stoppard play Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, which is based on Hamlet. But there's a character in there. The player is the character's name, and he's the leader of a troupe of actors that appear within the play. And he's got one line that's so perfect that I was thinking when you were mentioning all the things that we put ourselves through. He says, "We're actors. We're the opposite of people." It's so true. You have to be right at the edge of letting it all out, but also protecting yourself from letting it all in.
Well, and casting directors sometimes, have you ever seen these breakdowns that will come out that will say, "Oh, we want real people, not actors." I'm like, what am I? Wait, hold on. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I think also actors give people like Matt, they make Matt the boogeyman, right? The casting director is somehow this figment of our imagination. We've built them up into be this person that is so all powerful, we're going to see the wizard. And so we work ourselves up into a tizzy over what the casting director thinks of us, doesn't think of us. And in reality, the casting directors that I know, like Matt, are actually rooting for us. They want us to be that person that walks, okay, cool, I found the person, great. When we look good, we look good.
It's absolutely true. And if I can keep speaking candidly, one of the wonderful benefits of being a friend of Matt's for, 13 years now, 14 years, is that
wow.
It has helped me recognize just what you said, that the casting director is not the boogeyman. It's a person who is rooting for you. And so, you know, being friends with a casting director has been beneficial, not just because of the friendship and we love each other, but also as an actor to be able to recognize that that's a human being, like you said, has been advantageous going into rooms where Matt is not doing the hiring, or it's not Matt doing the hiring.
Right. I know what you meant.
Well, and something that I often tell actors is that, yeah, we're always pulling for you. If you guys do the best job you possibly can, we look better just by the nature of it. And also, you know, when I go through and I look at a scene, I can tell you just, and Lauren, you've heard me say this a zillion times, but I can tell you what beats an actor needs to hit. But then it's what the actor does above that that separates them from everybody else and brings interest to it that, you know, maybe it's not there on the page, or maybe it's just unique to them, or whatever it is. But that's where the magic in casting is for me. So you've been working in television a lot the last 10 years. What do you feel like you've learned the most about auditioning in that time?
I have learned in the last 10 years that I am either the guy that gets the part, or I'm not the guy that gets the part. It's that simple. And the people behind, on the other side of the table, the casting director, the producers, the directors, the creators of the show, the writers of that episode, they have in their mind already an idea of what this character is. And you, the actor, is either going to fit into that idea or you're not. If you do your job, if you study, if you come in prepared, which is the most important thing, actually, just to be prepared, you're either going to be the guy or not going to be the guy. It doesn't matter the tiny little choice on a line. It doesn't matter if you have the right shoes on, or if your not is correct or whatever. You're either the guy or you're not the guy. And to me, that has allowed me to exist in a place of less personal pressure. I and maybe I'm wrong about this, and Matt, you might be able to speak to it, but I don't necessarily get the feeling, at least in my experience, that I have walked in the room and they've all thought, no, this guy isn't going to play this part, and then I acted my way into getting that part. You know what I mean? I think, like, from the moment you walk in the room, especially in television, especially in episodic television, especially in guest spots in episodic television, you're either the guy or you're not the guy. And you don't have to put the extra pressure on yourself in thinking that you can do something with your performance that is going to change their minds and take you from not the guy to the guy. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think your perception of that is probably spot on. I mean, they wouldn't have asked you to be there if they didn't think you might be the guy.
Right.
But they're going to know very early on whether or not it's you or not. Have you considered, when Grey's Anatomy is on like its 57th season, asking your agent if you can audition again for it?
Do they have people come back on that show? Like, I know Law and Order, like, I'll look at somebody's IMDb and it'll be like Law and Order season 2, Law and Order season 6, and it's two totally different characters. But like Grey's Anatomy, I don't know if they'd have me back. I think it was on the, I don't know if it was the 8th season or the 11th season, season opener of that show. That was actually an incredible audition experience. That was the first audition I had when I got back to California after taking a couple years off and moving to Baltimore, and also working out some personal issues, which I don't mind talking about, like sobering the hell up and giving it another shot as an actor who was not encumbered by their own addictions. So I got to audition for Grey's Anatomy quite literally the morning after I finished driving back from Baltimore. Like Jenny and I drove from Baltimore in her car with all of our stuff out to LA 4 days straight. We brought the cat. He was great until the 3.5 day. Anyway, we made it. But the next morning I had to go audition for Grey's Anatomy with a casting director that I was familiar with, which was good, but hadn't seen in a while because I'd taken a break. And the scene was something that had already aired on the show. They were just using the audition scene from something that had, from another episode, just to gauge if they wanted this guy for the part. I guess the character was similar in some ways. And I went in and read the scene. It was the husband of a lady that's in the hospital who's struggling, and a bit like the Shirley MacLaine scene in Terms of Endearment, where she's frustrated because her daughter's not getting the attention that she feels her daughter should get. But in this case, it was the husband feeling as though his wife is not getting the attention that she should get from the doctors. And there's a lot of stuff wrapped up in that, in terms of playing the scene. You have the love of a husband for a wife. You have the frustration of a husband at the disease that his wife has, that is not her fault. The why has, thou forsaken me kind of stuff. And anyway, I went in for the audition, and thankfully the waiting room wasn't too crowded, and got into the room. And played the scene once, and it was they were ready to go. I think they had trouble finding the right guy for the part for a stretch, which if you end up being one of those actors that is in the, if they can't find the guy and can't find the guy and can't find the guy, and the people doing the hiring get more desperate, the possibility that you're the guy increases. It's just, that's,
He'll do.
That's math. So I read it once. I read the scene once, and it was several executives, the casting director's assistant, and the director of the episode. And I played the scene. I thought I did an okay job. And the director said, "Okay, that was great. But I feel like it would be, I feel like that the guy would be hurting a little more. I feel like the stakes would be a little higher for the guy. And I'd just like to see a little bit more if that's possible." And I did something that, that you're supposed to do as an actor, but that in the hot zone that an audition is, sometimes I forget to do, which is I took a moment to collect myself. I said, yes, sure, I'll give you more. And I took a moment to collect myself, and I allowed the reality of my own circumstances in that moment to come to the surface. I allowed the reality of the big haul that, driving across the country was, but also the big haul of trying to make it as an actor in show business, trying to succeed in a family that has had a lot of success, trying to succeed, comparing myself, trying to succeed on my own, having compared myself to other members of my family. And I allowed all this stuff that could be full of angst and full of frustration and full of anger and full of, am I good enough and why is this happening to me? All to, like, I gave my, and this happened, within a span of 7 seconds and 2 or 3 deep breaths. And then I played the scene again. And actors who do theater will tell you, if they do a run of shows for a while, sometimes some of the shows are better than other shows. And we can't quite put our finger on why. Sometimes something comes through us that is more powerful than the previous performance. Sometimes things happen and come out of us that are as good as we can be. That's what happened in the room for Grey's Anatomy. And it was big. It was powerful. Like it surprised me in the moment. Like, the brain is quick. And so I was observing myself as it was happening. And I thought, oh, fuck, wow, this is good. But I, stayed in the scene and finished the scene. And the casting directors, the room was quiet. It was good. Everybody was quiet. Everybody was kind of like, whoa. The casting director's assistant, who was operating the camera, said, whoa, wow, whoa, where did that come from? And I, like an asshole, got up to leave the room because I knew I was going to get that job. And I stood up and I said, Patty Duke, and headed for the door.
Oh my God.
It was quiet for a few steps, because I don't think they knew what the fuck I was talking about for a second. And then the nickel dropped and they got what I meant. And the roar of laughter that erupted as I was closing the door was very, very, very reassuring. And it was a big moment, like, in my life. Like
Yeah.
I succeeded at something that I'm supposed to be good at. And it was, powerful. I walked, I think I even did like a wise ass thing walking by the guy, the fellow at the desk, the casting associate in the front, who was, like trying to figure out why he was hearing laughter from the audition room when it's not supposed to be like that. And I gave him the old finger pump to see you later. It was really, really interesting. It was the moment that I took to listen to the direction and to allow myself. It's that simple. You know what I mean? Like, we're all capable. We can do this. Some people more so than others. Some people are tapped in. Shirley MacLaine, great example, tapped in. Meryl Streep, great example, tapped in. But when we allow ourselves to do what we can do, it's a lot better than having to perform.
Did you ever get to tell your mom that story?
I did. Yeah. Yeah, she got a kick out of it.
Did she love that?
Yeah. And I think she said, well, tell them to give me a fucking call. I haven't worked in a while.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, pardon my French.
Do you have any horror stories from auditions? Any of the opposite? Where I bombed that one and you left knowing that?
Tons of them. Are you kidding me? Tons of them. Left and right. I know somewhere out there exists on a VHS tape. Well, I hope it doesn't actually, but there is the potential for my audition for What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
Which role?
The one that Leonardo DiCaprio got.
So the kid with the disabilities. Yes.
Yeah, Arnie, I think is the character's name.
Yeah, which I think he totally deserved an Oscar for that, but that's another.
100%. You know who didn't? This guy.
Mackenzie Astin. Okay.
Somewhere out there is the tape of my audition for Primal Fear. Let me tell you what, they hired the right guy. Now, this is all self-deprecating stuff because that's how we survive. Which is not to say that I did a bad job in those auditions. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I honestly can't remember. Thank you, years of addiction. But even as someone who's been sober for 10 years, I've had a lot of experiences before I moved back to Baltimore and was auditioning all the time in LA that didn't go well. That went very, very poorly. Even if I thought I was doing great, recognizing later on, actually, oh man, this is embarrassing. There was another audition. There was an audition for a play in New York for a Torch Song Trilogy recently. I don't know, this is like 3-4 years ago. And I made like a stupid mistake in the room that, I didn't even realize was such a stupid mistake until way, way, way later. Like the way the play is performed, the actors stand in a pool of light and monologue sort of to the audience. Even though they're speaking to another character in the play, it's performed to the audience. And that's how I rehearsed this thing. And that's how I was ready to do it. There was another scene in the audition where I was actually communicating with the other actor, in the scene, but with the construct of the play, there's stuff that happens that's out to the audience. Well, they had an actor in the room to read the character that I was reading with in the other scene. But I decided to play that monologue scene talking to him. Like the character's telling the story of how these two guys met, but I ended up like playing it to him. And I could see the dear sweet actor in the chair, working with the casting people, like looking at me like, why are you playing this to me, dude? Like, and then recognize that, well, okay, he's going to play it to me. I'll be there for him. But, it wasn't until I was on the bus home that I was like, what did I do? This is so dumb.
Do you think that's the film actor in you, though? I mean, in theater, we're used to a more presentational style of acting in certain ways. And in film, it's about talking to someone, right? And
I certainly think that was I think that was an aspect of it for sure. But I think my I think I was grateful that like I could connect with another human being. Like they, there was the part of me that's scared. You get scared. That was grateful that they said, and this is so and so who'll be working with you, and I was like, oh, I'm safe over there, completely forgetting like how the thing is supposed to be played. So this is someone who is at that point had 34 years of experience in this business, still capable of making a totally rookie mistake. And they were great, they were nice, they were friendly. I didn't get the job, obviously. But like, nobody, I didn't walk out of the room with them going, you believe that guy? They were kind.
They probably just thought, oh, that was an interesting choice, but and not nearly as hard as you were on yourself.
Oh man, it was so dumb.
How long do you spend preparing for an audition?
It depends. Some stuff comes easier than other stuff. I've found, there are certain characters that I think I'm kind of a cookie cutter version of that can be easier to memorize the words and find the music of the scene. There are some things that just demand a lot more attention. Stuff that's based on older works. The language can be different. I had an audition for I can't remember the name of the play now, but it took place around the 17th century, and so the language was a little bit different, and that was a lot more work to get it in there. But practice makes it easier. And so I've found after a number of years that the repetition and the patience that my wife shows in reading the scene with me over and over again has gotten it to the point where I can memorize 5 to 10 pages in a day and be good to go the next day.
I'm sure it varies, but when you're not in a pandemic, how often are you auditioning?
It depends. The old pilot season cycle is different now. Obviously in years past, it used to get very busy in February and March and April. Less so now, but that means that there are also opportunities later in the year. I just finished working on a show in October of last year that didn't start until July, and it was the first season of something that'll be released on Netflix in August, I think. That happened well after the old normal pilot season. But I would say that on average, before the events, I would probably have 4 to 6 auditions a month. Mm-hmm. One a week. Mm-hmm. Which is great, which is terrific. Yeah. Obviously there's stretches in there where it'll get slow for a bit, or I'll end up with like 4 that I got to get done by Friday. Sure. It varies.
What's your dream right now, Max? Like if you could be working full time as an actor right now all the time, would you choose to be a series regular on an episodic television show, or
yes.
Would you want to be in a Broadway show?
Yes.
Or would you want to be doing feature films?
Yes.
All of it. Okay.
Well, it's they each of them have their own pluses and minuses for sure. I tend to fall in love with every experience that I have working because number one, I'm grateful to be working, and number two, I just think people are fascinating creatures, and I like meeting people, and the show business, episodic television and film can be really, really incredible experiences because the schedules are long and arduous and difficult, and the collection of people that all have the common goal, which is the front of that call sheet, the what has to be shot that day, that I think can really engender some terrific relationships and the idea of teamwork, which is something I really dig on. The experience I had in Atlanta on the show for Netflix, the first season will come out later this summer. That was a fantastic experience. I love it all. But I feel like the opportunity to work as a series regular on a show that is successful, which I was afforded as a 12-year-old, yeah. Just about it. I think I was a regular for one season. is an incredible experience, and that begets more work. So like if you're lucky enough to get on a show that people like as a regular, it gives you a lot more opportunities to do something on stage in New York, to do a feature film. But in terms of the schedule, the camaraderie, the opportunity to do different stuff over a lengthy period of time, a series regular on a television show that people like and people watch, that's pie in the sky. That's a dream.
Do you prepare differently for in-person auditions than you do for self-tapes?
Yes and no. Obviously, there's something that's slightly different about working with my wife and working on stage at the theater, a quarter mile away, which is probably a lot more relaxed and a lot less. The hackles are not up. Auditioning for stuff, like going into the room, you got to kind of be a little bit tougher, a little bit more prepared in a lot of ways, so that because you do just have that one opportunity when you get in the room, unless they ask you to read it a second time. So you got to be more on your toes, which I think has positives and negatives. Some people work better that way, and some people find stuff deeper within them if it's in a more relaxed situation.
So has there been any particular or collective experience auditioning that you have learned the most from?
And this was me bringing my own shit into it, and me commenting on what I felt was an unfair circumstance that just was taking place because of the logistics. But it just so happened that the waiting room was right next to, this was an older building in Los Angeles, something that was probably built in the 20s. And it was hardwood floors, and there were French doors, and there was a gap between the French doors and the hardwood floors. And the waiting room was here, and the audition was here, where the camera was and the production staff. And so you could hear absolutely everything that was going on in the room into which you were waiting to go. Which I don't think is very fair, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles, and you have to be able to put up with it and deal with it, and either let it affect you and pass through, or don't let it get in there at all. But I let it get in there, and I let it go into the room, and I was hanging on to that frustration, and we finished the first scene, and I actually said from the room where the audition was to the people outside, "How am I doing in here?" I think if I was the guy at that point, I might not have been the guy thereafter. But that's me bringing my own bullshit into the room, and that's totally unnecessary and selfish and egotistical, to be honest. You know what I mean? To try to make a commentary on the experience while I was having the experience is not going to get you the job. You know what I mean? Like, and so what I learned from that was that my own inability to process what was a difficult circumstance got in my way really bad. I did get a couple laughs as I walked out, but I didn't get hired. I keep learning. I keep learning. And I think that's something that's probably a good idea for both young actors and older actors to bear in mind, is that it's possible to keep learning. And so the experiences that I continue to have, however difficult they may be, because of the circumstances, are opportunities to learn. And so I learn different things from different experiences.
So your most recent work that we can see you on is Showtime's The Loudest Voice.
Yes.
You've spoken a little bit about it up to this point. Is there anything else you can tell us about it?
It's a great limited series, I think it's called. It's a great mini series.
Really good.
It was very, very instructive for me. As an actor, just to watch the ease with which Russell Crowe allowed himself to perform and to do the best he could, and also tremendous breadth of knowledge that he brought to the filmmaking process. His awareness of lens size and where the cameras are going to be and how he's going to perform certain stuff. What shot they're going to be on for a certain part of his speech. I mean, I likened it to Gretzky on the ice. You know what I mean? They talk about Gretzky being able to see 2 or 3 plays ahead and be in the right place at the right time. And that's the feeling that I got from watching Russell Crowe work. His awareness is, way up there. In terms of the show itself, what I thought was really valuable about it was it gave me some insight into how Fox News has become as influential and powerful as it is, and how necessary it is for someone who is on the other side of the spectrum politically to recognize and empathize with those who are not like me. Remembering that we're all human beings, I think, is imperative in terms of understanding what drives people who have different value systems than I do. Television is a pretty powerful thing, and the ability to affect people's points of view is something that shouldn't be trifled with. Is a dangerous entity in the hands of people who want more for themselves than they want for others. But it's still a good show. Yeah.
The next thing we'll be able to see you on is Netflix's Teenage Bounty Hunters.
Teenage Bounty Hunters, yes.
What can you tell us about that show?
Oh man, that's the show that I got to work on last year in Atlanta, and it is a lot of fun. It's from the executive producer Genji Cohn, who brought us Orange is the New Black and Weeds, so it's good. And the creator and head writer is a lady named Kathleen Jordan, who herself is from Georgia, and has done a really wonderful job, in my opinion, telling the story of 2 fraternal twin girls who are teenagers in a parochial school in the conservative South, who are working through the mores that today's youth has to deal with in terms of what they're being taught at school and what they're getting from the outside, because a lot of times those things can be vastly different, and it's a tough world to navigate right now. And this show tells the story of these 2 very smart, very funny teenage girls who, through a series of circumstances, find themselves working with a bounty hunter who himself is trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And everybody has a lot of fun doing it, which is good. The scripts are smart. The scripts are funny. We had a good time doing it, which I think can translate to the screen a lot. Mm-hmm. So my hope is that people will tune in to hear some pretty snappy dialogue, some surprising action sequences, and also, the occasional goofy dad.
So Homeland season 7 shot in Richmond, Virginia. You're on cloud 9. Nothing to do with the show. Nothing to do with working with Claire Danes. Nothing to do with working on Homeland. You are thrilled by your prop.
Wait, hold on.
What?
Do I still have my prop? Now this. Oh, I got some calls. Oh,
is it your actual phone?
This is not the prop from the show, okay. But this is my actual phone. But the story. This is a BlackBerry Key One. You can see it's got buttons. Well, that's really exciting for me. Yes, they still make them. Yes, they still work. This is the new, well, no, this is the newest. This is a version from before the newest, but it's an Android operating system, and it's fully functional except when you drop it and the back comes off. But they were selling them. They were selling them online, but nobody had them in the stores. I had an older BlackBerry before this, and I was looking at it and I was like, wow, this phone's great, but it's like a lot of money and I don't know if I want to get it, but ooh, I really would like to get my hands on it to feel if it's like, feels good. It's a different shape, but I just want to make sure it feels right in my hands. But they weren't carrying them in stores. It was like the only way that you could get it in your hands is by buying one for, I think they were $800 at the time. And so I, was like, oh, what am I going to do? Because the old operating system was going to be too outdated and there wasn't enough bells and whistles for this modern day or whatever. And I was like, gosh, if only I could just get my hands on one of those BlackBerry Key Ones. Well, I go to work on a really good show called Homeland. And, it's a really good show. And there I am. Holy shit. How did that happen? Like the first day of work, second day of work. No, it was the second episode. The prop lady comes up to me in the morning. She goes, okay, here are your keys and here's your backpack. Oh, and this is the phone that you're going to be using for the character. And I'm like, it's a Key One. They put it in my hands. I couldn't believe it. Like, I think I scared people with how excited I was for that prop. The prop assistant was like, are you okay? I'm like, no, you don't understand. And then I told the whole story. And then she took a picture of me holding the phone to send to the prop master because I think BlackBerry had wanted them to use a couple in the show, for, what do they call that? Product. And I was like over the moon to get my hands on one. And so it was great. And I ended up buying my own, which I've had for long enough to break the back off of a couple of times. It's okay.
I don't remember if I saw it on the monitor being on set or if I saw it when the episode actually aired. But when you're watching President Keene give that speech, you've like strategically placed the phone in your back, the small of your back, so that's very prominent in the shot.
Matt, you're giving it away. I did. No, I had my elbow on the mantelpiece and I was holding the phone there. And it was like, yeah, that's the phone. I still have a picture that I took with my old phone of me holding the prop phone, like to show Jenny, like, oh my God, it's here. Yeah, it's a good phone. Now there's a BlackBerry Key 2, and I'm thinking of getting that, but it doesn't have the capacitive keyboard, and you guys don't want to hear any of this stuff.
How do you see the industry coming out of this pandemic?
It's a tough call. There's a lot of different factors at play. I think the best thing that could happen for the world and the industry would be for some genius to figure out how to beat the thing via a vaccine. I don't know how possible that is. I don't know how long that would take. From what I'm reading, people in the medical field feel as though it is something that is possible, but it might just take a long time. And that's going to be tough. Absent something that makes it all go away or makes it okay, I think what we're going to see are, it's funny, I think we're going to see very, very careful cells of production. I think we'll see stuff that's done for camera, what they used to call for camera tape, but now everybody's on film, but stuff that you would do with the studio audience in that, like sitcoms. I think we'll see those start up probably first. And you'll have, once the availability of testing, is available, you'll see people that are tested, quarantined, until the results come in, and then, put in a place where they live, like, and produce content that way. When I was a lot younger and smoking reefer and more of a hippie, although that never really goes away, I had this idealized vision in the future of what I came to call a film commune. And what it was in my head at the time I was thinking about how there are a few actors out there that get paid a whole bunch of money, and how the pay structure is not exactly fair for the artisans that build the sets, and for the people that do hair and makeup, and the people that create the clothes, or all that sort of stuff. And it occurred to me that an interesting idea would be a studio a little bit like United Artists in some ways, where the artists had a lot of control, but where everybody was just in-house. And you had people of like mind that were skilled at carpentry, skilled at cinematography, skilled at makeup and hair, skilled at all these different things, who just sort of lived together and created together, and then sold their product for, it would, in my old thinking, it would take like a couple of really huge names to be involved for the money to all work out. But it seems like the earth has given us an opportunity to have that take place. So what I think we'll see are individual, groups that are isolated from the public, that are there to create content, which, will probably be expensive to begin with, but at a certain point we're gonna run out of content. The real answer is when it's over. Is when either there is enough immunity all around, if it ends up being that that's the case with this particular pathogen, or somebody comes up with something that makes it go away. But absent that, I think we'll see small groups produce stuff, and hopefully successfully, and hopefully in a way that doesn't get more people sick. It's a weird, none of us have experienced this before.
No.
It's bizarre and wild, but I feel like in the past, though the experience for individuals was vastly different because we were so isolated, and we're less isolated now, right? I mean, we got 3 different states in the union brought together on one screenwriter. Good things came from the last time this happened. There was terrific art that got created during periods of time when we all had to hunker down. And I feel like some good stuff is going to come from this, whether it is, the ability for people to communicate this way, in a way that, that we can show in movies in the future, or TV shows in the future, or, just somebody who's hunkered down away from everybody coming up with a terrific idea for a show, a terrific idea for a movie, a terrific idea for something that they wouldn't have necessarily come up with had we not been experiencing what we're experiencing now.
Maybe as a pipe dream, we'll get arts funding for schools again. Maybe people will realize that art actually brought something to them during this time. That's what they turn to.
Yep.
In times of crisis.
Yep. Hopefully. I mean, I think that this is an opportunity for some very, 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 very big paradigm shifts to be undertaken. That put us in a better place for the future. And I mean the big future. I mean past 2050, which at present is when things start to get real hot, right? So right. If they're already getting hot. I think this is an opportunity. There's you've, I'm sure, heard a number of people say this, but there's, I think, and I could be paraphrasing incorrectly, which is part of my charm. But I think the kanji character for crisis is a combination of 2 characters: a character for danger and the character for opportunity. And this is a crisis, but there's also opportunity. So we can make the best of it if we make the best of it.
What are your thoughts on the Houston Astros?
I mean, there's that awful phrase that you hear from either coaches or the guy with the biggest waistline on the bench spitting the most tobacco. That's something like, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. That is pervasive in the sporting world, and not just the sporting world, but the political world too. So like, it's a shame that the Dodgers lost that World Series, perhaps because the other team had an unfair advantage. It sucks. To linger on it too much is debilitating. So I have tried to move on. I think that's part of the reason why I can't watch, like replays of games that are more recent than not. I think it still hurts because jeepers. And this seems to happen to the Dodgers like repeatedly. The very famous home run from a guy named Bobby Thompson, the shot heard round the world, it's called. It was 1951. And the New York Giants were chasing the Brooklyn Dodgers in the National League. And they caught up to them. They had to play a 2-game or 3-game playoff series to determine who would go to the World Series. And the score was tied in the bottom of the ninth, I think. It might have been the bottom of the ninth. And a guy named Ralph Branca came in to pitch for the Dodgers, and a guy named Bobby Thompson hit a home run over the left field wall. That there's a famous radio call. A guy named Russ Hodges says, the Giants win the pennant. The Giants win the pennant. You've heard it, I'm sure. And it was, a big deal. The Giants won the pennant. Good for them. Ralph Branca hung his head, and somebody put his arm around him. They walked to the clubhouse, and it was a bummer. The Dodgers lost. Years later, it came out that for the last 6 weeks of the season, the New York Giants had stationed somebody out in center field with a set of binoculars. And they had a system buzzer hooked up that went from where the guy was stationed with the binoculars down to the bullpen, the Giants bullpen. And if it was a fastball, the guy would hit the buzzer once. And a guy standing at the Giants bullpen, which was visible from the batters from home plate, would either put his arm with a towel in it up or down, giving the batter the indication if it was a fastball or an off-speed pitch. So nothing new under the sun. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. But I don't think we teach our kids to cheat, right? I mean, if we're teaching our kids to not cheat, and then you have people teaching them later to cheat in order to win, that's like cognitive dissonance. That's not fair. Of course, a lot of things aren't fair. So maybe it's a good thing that I'm learning that people cheat.
To go out on a lighter note, we all want to know whether or not you think Carol Baskin killed her husband.
I'm going to tell you a secret. I haven't watched it yet.
We're really not surprised.
No, I knew. And I think, Lauren, we've found the one American that has not watched this show in our first go round at this.
We found the one.
Jenny hasn't either.
I thought maybe she would have taken a look at it. No,
it's interesting. I think each individually got just swamped with suggestions to watch it all at once, which made us go no. You know what I mean? There was a paragraph in the LA Times from like in the year 2000 about The Sopranos when the show was very, very popular, and the writer of the article was taking the piss out of that, and it says something about now that the Sopranos has replaced oxygen as the very thing we need to survive on the planet. And I've always remembered that because, it's amazing. Some stuff gets really, really popular. And I don't know, maybe it's just to be like a BlackBerry toting weirdo. I haven't watched it yet.
No, you're better off not. Honestly, it's the only show I've watched in its entirety to where when it was over, I was relieved.
Oof. Okay. Yeah. Good to know. Good to know.
He was texting me like this. What the fuck is this? Are these people real?
Yeah. What's interesting is I remember driving by because that place was in Oklahoma, right? The animal park. I remember driving by billboards for that place. I worked in Oklahoma a few years ago, and thinking, what is that? That seems sketchy. Like just instinctively, it was like, ooh, that doesn't seem okay.
You know, the crazy thing though, Matt, if you had been hired, I told Matt this, I was like, Matt, if you were casting this show, okay, if you were casting a show and you're like, here's what I need, okay, I'm looking for a gay, tiger loving, mullet wearing, you know, Southern flamboyant lead, we'd be like, dude, nobody's going to watch that show. That's insane. And yet everybody in the nation watched this documentary.
Yeah, crazy for it. Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, it took a global pandemic, but it got it done.
Well, America loves some trash TV.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's true.
Oh, well, any parting thoughts?
Well, thanks for letting me do this. Thanks for listening to me prattle on as I want to do. Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to meet you, Lauren.
You too, Mac.
Yeah. Yeah, I look forward to the opportunity to do so in person once we're all, you know, a little bit better off.
I would give anything to have you be able to come to Orlando and talk to my actors. I make Matt do it all the time.
Okie doke.
So, you know, we work in Atlanta too. That's obviously our major market that we're back and forth between all the time. I'm from Georgia originally, actually.
Perfect.
Who knew that Georgia was going to have a film market?
Well, I mean, you know, honestly, I tell you, the guy who's got the property that's probably going to go to work first is Tyler Perry.
I agree.
It's all right there. And they already are such an incredibly well-oiled machine there that I have a feeling that's going to lead the way, at least in this, you know, in the Southeast, which is great.
His casting director is a woman named Raven Drummer. I don't know if you know her, but she and I are friends. And I sat down with her a couple weeks ago to do a little one of these kind of things with her. And they're casting right now. She's got a couple of shows that she's doing, and she's like, you know, I'm not worried about the quality of the self tapes right now. I just need to see the actors. I understand that people are taping in their houses and blah blah blah. So she's doing that show Sisters or something, I think.
Okay.
It sounds so white when I say it, but
you're supposed to.
I'm like, I'm so white. And so I know that one, there's been some actors in my studio that have had some auditions for that. So that's good. I love the fact that there are at least some things that are gearing up and getting ready.
No, that's good. I actually, an audition came in last night. That's not due until the 7th of May, but you know, and there was the caveat in the slip that's like, you know, they're hoping to go in October, I think.
Wow.
So like, you know, fingers crossed, but you know, I ain't seen no shit before like this, man. You know, this is definitely interesting.
You know, making film and television is a collaborative enterprise, and it requires that we gather in large groups. So whether it's by mail or in person or some other variation, please make sure to get out and vote in November. We got to stop meeting like this.
Copy that.